Success, contrary to popular belief, does not arrive with thunder or applause. It does not crash through the doors of life in a chariot of lightning. No success comes in silence. It comes in the form of repeated thoughts, aligned actions, and the invisible thread of one man's unwavering consistency. Let us begin this journey with a statement that many will resist, but few can afford to ignore. Your future depends not on what you know, but on what you repeatedly do. Knowledge without repetition is noise. Motivation without repetition is mood. Vision without repetition is hallucination. It is not the man who moves with intensity once that wins. It is the man who moves with purpose again and again when no one is watching, when no one claps, and when no emotion supports him who builds an empire. Consistency is the bridge between your present weakness and your future strength. It is the chisel that sculpts your mind into a temple. It is the standard that kills your excuses and births your evolution. Now, ask yourself with brutal honesty, have I been consistent with what I claim to want? Because here is the eternal law. The man who cannot stay loyal to a standard will forever remain loyal to his suffering. Inconsistency is not a personality trait, it is a trained behavior. And like all trained behaviors, it can be untrained, rewired, and restructured, but only if you're willing to face the discomfort that comes with real change. Why discomfort? Because your old self, the version of you that delays, doubts, complains, and retreats, is addicted to the highs of short bursts and allergic to the discipline of slow, steady progress. He wants fireworks. He wants fast. He wants feelings. But consistency doesn't care how you feel. Consistency is your soul's contract with your higher self. It is not romantic. It is not emotional. It is not theatrical. It is repetition. It is showing up. It is acting from principle, not preference. And that is why most men fail, because they want their future to feel like pleasure. But the truth is, the future belongs to those who can endure monotony. Let me now define this principle for you. Consistency is the refusal to negotiate with the emotional self. The emotional self says, "Not today." Consistency replies, "I don't take orders from moods." The emotional self says, "Just this once." Consistency answers, "Once is how erosion begins." The emotional self says, "You've done enough." Consistency declares, "Enough is not my standard. Alignment is." And this is the essence of mental discipline. Discipline is not intensity. Discipline is consistency under command. Anyone can be intense for a moment, but few can be disciplined when results are invisible. And yet, that is exactly what the builder does. The builder repeats his practice when no one believes. He repeats his focus when others are distracted. He repeats his steps even when the path feels unclear, because he has learned to obey the standard, not the storm. This is the first secret of mastery. Success is not something you achieve. Success is something you become through what you consistently repeat. Now hear me carefully. Your mind, your income, your body, your habits, every piece of your life today is the harvest of yesterday's consistency. And if you're not satisfied with the harvest, stop cursing the soil and start evaluating the seeds you've been sowing. Did you show up? Did you follow through? Did you execute when it was uncomfortable? Because that is what determines the quality of your destiny. Let us go deeper. There is a reason most people are not consistent. It is not laziness. It is not lack of time. It is not even ignorance. It is emotional attachment. You have been taught falsely to believe that your feelings are your guide. You've been told to listen to your emotions. But here's the problem. Emotions shift, standards don't. You do not rise because you feel like it. You rise because the mission commands it. This is where emotional detachment becomes the elite weapon of the uncommon man. Detachment is not absence of emotion. Detachment is mastery over emotion. You feel doubt, you still move. You feel resistance, you still act. You feel invisible, you still execute. Because your loyalty is not to the feeling. Your loyalty is to the future. And the future does not belong to the emotional, it belongs to the exacting. If you react, you break. If you respond, you build. The man who responds is detached. The man who reacts is enslaved. And when you are enslaved to emotion, consistency is impossible. Because emotions are like weather, they change, they swirl, they lie, but principle is constant. And that's what consistency must serve principle. You want more wealth? Then repeat wealth behavior. You want more peace? Then repeat discipline. You want more power? Then repeat detachment. Do not wait to be in the mood. Do not ask to be motivated. Do not consult your emotions. Consult your commitments. What have you committed to? What have you promised your future? And now ask, are you living like someone who intends to keep that promise? Because until your behavior reflects the future you say you want, you're lying to yourself. Consistency is the sword that kills that lie. And from that death, something new is born. A self that can be trusted. You trust yourself not because of a good feeling, but because your word is law, because your actions are proof, because your past 7 days reflect your next 70 years. That is how you earn internal respect. And that is how you multiply external results. Wealth does not arrive because you believe. Wealth arrives because you behave repeatedly. The most powerful people on earth are not always the loudest, the fastest, or the most visible. They are the most consistent. They are the men and women who have mastered the art of doing small things with unshakable precision over and over again until their behavior rewrites their destiny. Because here is what most never realize. Identity is not found. It is forged through behavior. If you act like a champion for a day, you feel like a champion for a moment. But if you behave like a champion every day, you become one. Not because the world told you so, not because you were crowned, but because your behavior earned it. Let us define this with clarity. You do not rise to your goals, you fall to your systems, and your system is what you do not once but every day. Your system is your real belief. Your consistency is your true religion. You can speak affirmations, you can shout mantras, you can visualize endlessly, but if your behavior contradicts your desire, your life will always mirror your contradiction, not your intentions. The man who says he wants wealth but repeatedly avoids discomfort, he's not inconsistent. He is perfectly consistent with poverty. The man who says he wants mastery but continues to negotiate with distractions, he is not confused. He is committed to staying small. You see, your results never lie. Your behavior never lies. Your repetition is always telling the truth even when your words are not. And the truth is this: you are not what you occasionally do. You are what you consistently repeat. That is your identity. That is your brand. That is your character. So if you want to change your life, you don't change everything. You change the default behavior that runs when no one is watching. Because that's who you really are. Not who you are when inspired. Not who you are when coached. But who you are at 5 a.m. Who you are on a bad day. Who you are in silence. And that version of you must be trained like an athlete through deliberate repetition. Repetition is not punishment. Repetition is the ritual of the uncommon. The world sees repetition as boring. The elite see repetition as sacred because they understand. The body does not change from a single workout. The mind does not transform from a single thought. But with enough repetition, the impossible becomes automatic. Let us go further. In the mind of every disciplined man lives a small voice, the old self. That voice will try to bargain. It will say, take a break. It will say, you've earned it. It will say, you can do it later. And if you obey that voice, even once it grows louder. But if you ignore it and act anyway, it dies. Repetition is how you starve the weak self and feed the builder. Each consistent action is a vote for strength, a vote for control, a vote for the version of you who finishes what he starts. Now pause and ask yourself, are your daily behaviors casting votes for the future you want? Because the ballot box of destiny is open every morning and every hour you delay is a silent vote for regression. There is no neutral. You are either reinforcing discipline or reinforcing distraction. You are either training power or training passivity. You are either growing or decaying. And consistency is the architect of that direction. You must therefore build habits that do not rely on inspiration. You must create systems that survive your bad moods. You must become the kind of man who does not need to feel good to do good. That is the builder's code. I do not obey my feelings, I obey my future. Let me now reveal one more truth. Most men are consistent, but with the wrong behavior. They are consistent in overthinking, consistent in comparison, consistent in self-doubt, consistent in procrastination, and they wonder why their life never improves. But improvement is not an event. It is a new loyalty, a loyalty to action, a loyalty to truth, a loyalty to showing up even when the mind begs you not to. That loyalty must be earned in private, because private consistency becomes public power. It becomes trust. It becomes confidence. It becomes clarity. And clarity is what kills chaos. When you know your standard, you don't chase feelings. When you repeat your behavior, you don't beg for motivation. When you show up again and again and again, the mind stops resisting and begins to obey. This is how you become unstoppable. Not through hype, not through intensity, but through quiet, calculated, non-negotiable consistency. Understand this now once and for all. Emotion-based action is the foundation of mediocrity. It is how you sabotage yourself while thinking you're protecting yourself. It is how the world seduces you into weakness while dressing it as wisdom. Because here's the trick of emotion. It speaks in the voice of truth, but it carries the agenda of fear. Emotion says, rest, you're tired. But discipline says, move, your future is calling. Emotion says, pause, you're uncertain. But principle says, proceed, the mission is non-negotiable. Emotion says, take a break, you've done enough. But the standard says, we are not finished until it is finished. And every time you choose emotion over the standard, you lower your power and lengthen your journey. But when you choose discipline over emotion, even once, you begin the sacred process of rewiring your identity. Here is a truth most men never grasp. Discipline is not suppression. Discipline is alignment. It is not the denial of feeling. It is the exaltation of purpose. It is the voice within you that says, I see the pain, I feel the resistance, I acknowledge the fear, and I choose to act anyway because my vision is louder than my mood. Now understand this. The reason most people never change is because they rely on conscious effort to carry them forward. They make resolutions. They build excitement. They act for a few days. Then they crash. Why? Because the conscious mind is like a spark. It can start a fire, but it cannot keep one burning without fuel. That fuel is habit. That firewood is repetition. That permanence is built in the subconscious. Let me make this painfully clear. Until consistency becomes your default, your success will always depend on your mood. And moods are weak allies. They are volatile. They are reactive. They are fragile. But the man who trains his behavior until it becomes automatic, he no longer needs to negotiate with moods. He acts from mental autopilot. And here lies one of the great hidden truths of success. The goal is not to stay motivated. The goal is to become consistent without needing motivation at all. How? By installing routines that run regardless of feeling. By repeating actions until the body obeys without hesitation. By tying identity to execution, not emotion. Because once you've trained the body to move without mental permission, you become dangerous. You become fast. You become calm. You become free. You no longer spend energy convincing yourself to act. You simply act. You no longer waste days deciding what matters. You already know. You no longer need to restart because you never stop. That is power. Power is not speed. Power is not noise. Power is not spectacle. Power is repetition so consistent that chaos bows in your presence. Because you've done it 1,000 times. Because you've shown up when it didn't make sense. Because you've proven to yourself again and again that you will not fold, not flicker, not falter. And when the world sees that, they stop questioning you. They stop testing you. They stop doubting you. Why? Because consistency is the language of power. You don't need to explain. You don't need to argue. You don't need to impress. You simply keep showing up. And over time, they understand. They understand that your word is law. They understand that your presence is certainty. They understand that your results are not random, they are earned. And in that consistency, your life begins to transform. Let me leave you with this. If you want the world to move for you, show the world that nothing moves you. Not failure, not fatigue, not emotion, not doubt. You become the mountain. You become the fixed point in a spinning world. You become the one whose actions are not ruled by noise, but by standard. That is what it means to be consistent. That is what it means to build legacy. That is what it means to own your mind and command your future. Let us now enter the realm of unbreakable focus, the battlefield where the weak scatter and the powerful conquer. Focus is not a product of willpower. It is the result of clarity enforced through consistency. You do not earn focus by wishing for it. You earn it by eliminating options. You see, the undisciplined man believes in doing everything. The disciplined man believes in doing the same right thing over and over again until his focus becomes a blade that cuts through every distraction. The sharper your focus, the fewer your competitors. Focus is not accidental. It is engineered. And the engineer of focus is standards. A standard says, this is what I do. This is when I do it. This is how I do it, regardless of how I feel. And once that standard is enforced, the mind stops negotiating. It stops wandering. It begins obeying. The weak mind asks, what should I do today? The strong mind declares, here is what I will do because that's who I am. Understand this. Focus is the elimination of self-betrayal. When you betray your time, you lose clarity. When you betray your habits, you lose confidence. When you betray your vision, you lose destiny. And all of that betrayal begins with a single sentence. I'll do it later. This is the language of the emotionally undisciplined. I'm tired. I'm overwhelmed. I need a break. I'm just not feeling it today. Let me be clear. Excuses are not explanations. Excuses are evidence of a mind still ruled by comfort. Every excuse is a vote for the emotional self. Every excuse is a signal to your subconscious. This mission is negotiable. But discipline says, I don't care how I feel. I only care if I show up. Because showing up is sacred. Repetition is sacred. The calendar is sacred. The standard is sacred. You don't skip sacred. You don't postpone sacred. You don't modify sacred. You honor it. And in honoring it, you evolve. This is how the man of consistency thinks. I do not need to feel ready. I need to be reliable. I do not wait for mood. I create motion. I do not worship emotion. I worship alignment. Now hear this. When you install a standard high enough, it begins to kill the old you. The version of you who hesitated dies. The version of you who begged for permission dies. The version of you who required motivation dies. And in his place stands someone who no longer identifies with struggle because he has outgrown it. This is the true power of consistency. You don't just change your habits, you change your identity. You become a man who finishes, a man who repeats, a man who cannot be moved by weakness because he no longer recognizes himself in it. The future bends for the man who refuses to break his standard. Because every repetition builds reputation, and the first person you must earn reputation with is yourself. When you trust your own follow-through, your energy changes. When your mind knows it can count on you, your confidence rises. When your spirit sees the pattern of completion, your power compounds. And now the world begins to respond. Not because you asked, but because your consistency made it impossible to ignore you. This is the secret 95% of people will never learn. The world does not reward potential. The world rewards proof. And proof is only earned through consistent execution. Not intensity, not potential, not emotional declarations, but behavior, repetition, habit, standard. That is the path. That is the price. That is the power. If you've listened with an open mind and a serious heart, you already know what must die and what must be born. The man who waits for support must die. The man who craves comfort must die. The man who negotiates with emotion must die, so that the builder may live. The one who moves from standard. The one who repeats until reality bends. The one who is no longer governed by circumstance but commands it. This, my friend, is the truth that most men will never accept. Your life is not changed by information. It is changed by repetition. What you do once means little. What you repeat, that is who you are. What you repeat, that is what you become. What you repeat, that is what you attract, what you build, and what you pass on. You must now decide whether you will live by emotion or by principle, by mood or by mission, by reaction or by response, by excuse or by execution. Because every time you act, you cast a vote, not just for your outcomes, but for your identity. You are always building something, a future or a coffin, a legacy or a lie, a weapon or a wound. And here is the immutable law. The man who cannot command himself will always be commanded by something else. Some are ruled by approval. Some are ruled by delay. Some are ruled by distraction. But the few, the powerful few, are ruled only by one thing, standard. And they guard that standard like sacred fire. They rise when they don't want to. They repeat when it feels pointless. They finish when it's inconvenient. They master themselves not because it's easy, but because it's required. They know that every second matters. They know that every habit teaches. They know that every moment of inconsistency is a lesson and a warning. You are not the exception. You are not the victim. You are not the story you tell yourself to justify your delay. You are the builder. You are the one who decides. You are the one who repeats. You are the one who becomes. Not in theory, not in fantasy, not in potential, but in daily, precise, unwavering execution. And that is where the transformation happens. Not in a book, not in a seminar, but in the daily contract you sign with your future. A contract written in behavior, signed in sweat, sealed in consistency. So now you must choose. Will you break the cycle or will you break your promise? Will you rise or will you repeat what broke you? Because the clock is not waiting. The world is not slowing down. And your potential is not guaranteed. Only one thing is, what you repeat, you become. So I leave you with this. Do not ask for motivation. Do not beg for inspiration. Do not wait for a sign. Be the standard. Repeat the behavior. Kill the old self. Command your future. Because the man who forces himself to be consistent becomes the man the world cannot stop. There is no man alive who does not wish for success, but there are very few who are willing to become the kind of person success will not refuse. And I tell you with the utmost solemnity, money does not respond to need. It responds to mindset. The poor cry out for help. The rich respond with habit. The undisciplined demand support. The master of himself demands nothing but the next hour of focused creation. Wealth, true, generational, unshakable wealth, does not arrive to those who wait. It flows to those who think. If your finances are broken, it is not your job that is broken. It is not your market. It is not your government. It is your inner world, your beliefs, your emotional attachments, your thought patterns, your reactions, your excuses, your hidden agreements with failure. Fix these and your money will fix itself. This speech is not about budgeting. It is not about stock markets, side hustles, or strategies. It is about the foundation that makes all strategies succeed, the mindset. Not the one you talk about in public, but the one you rehearse in secret. Not the image, but the root, the invisible chain that either binds your finances or releases them. There are 5 foundational mindset habits that will alter your financial trajectory forever, but they demand a level of honesty few are willing to bear. They require emotional detachment, mental discipline, and total ownership of your inner world. And before I reveal them to you, you must agree to one thing. You will no longer make peace with mediocrity. If you are still defending your limitations, this speech will offend you. If you are still emotionally attached to being comfortable, this speech will agitate you. But if you are ready to become someone new, not merely someone improved, then I will place power in your hands. Habit 1, detach from the emotional need for approval. Your bank account is not controlled by numbers. It is controlled by identity. And identity, more often than not, is hijacked by the emotional addiction to approval. You have been taught to seek validation, to be liked, to be agreeable. But here is the truth you must swallow before anything can change. You cannot build wealth while needing people to understand you. Approval is emotional currency for the poor in spirit. The rich in mind know this law. Every time you trade conviction for comfort, you subtract dollars from your destiny. Most people do not go broke from failure. They go broke from the fear of judgment. They silence their creativity, delay their action, suppress their ambition, all because someone might disagree or worse, disapprove. You must kill the addiction to being liked. You must become emotionally detached from public opinion, social praise, and collective applause, because what society celebrates is comfort, but what wealth demands is clarity, not just of purpose, but of posture. When you are emotionally neutral, when your mood is no longer manipulated by other people's opinions, you become dangerous. You move in silence. You decide based on truth. You work while others perform. You are no longer an actor in the play of approval. You are the director of your own fate. Detach from needing permission and your vision will triple in power. Habit 2. Replace reaction with command. Money does not flow to the emotional. It flows to the calm. The man who reacts to everything will spend everything. The man who commands his emotions will command his income. Most people live in financial reactivity. They feel lack and they panic. They feel envy and they spend. They feel pressure and they fold. They feel insecurity and they try to prove their worth through possessions they can't afford. This is the financial death spiral. Emotions trigger reaction. Reaction creates debt. Debt triggers more emotion, and the cycle continues. You must interrupt this pattern, not through willpower alone, but through habit, through training, through the daily ritual of mental neutrality. Emotional detachment is the foundation of all high-income decision-making. When you learn to feel a wave of emotion and pause, truly pause, you reclaim your freedom. A calm mind is a wealthy mind. A still hand writes the clearest strategy. And the man who does not react to the world can design a world that reacts to him. Here is a law you must tattoo into your thoughts. If you can be emotionally controlled, you can be financially manipulated. He who keeps his calm keeps his kingdom. Begin each day with silence. Create margin. Learn to pause. Rewire your nervous system to respond like a king, not a beggar. And you will discover that clarity, not income, is the rarest asset on earth. Habit 3. Build daily mental discipline through repetition. The average man thinks in terms of goals. The master of wealth thinks in terms of repetition. If you cannot do the same thing powerfully every day, you will never build anything worth having. Discipline is not the punishment of desire, it is the proof that desire is real, and there is no financial power without discipline of mind. You must schedule your thoughts, or the world will do it for you. You must guard your hour of power, your sacred morning discipline, and fill it with thought, repetition, declaration, and strategy. You must train your mind like an athlete trains his body. Thought control is not an option. It is the cost of freedom. Here is what few understand. Emotional discipline is financial acceleration, because every day you don't give in to distraction, you gain momentum. And every day you don't make excuses, your self-trust compounds. Discipline is not sexy, but it is sacred. You must show up even when you're tired. You must read even when you're bored. You must save even when it feels small. You must create even when you don't see the return yet. Because the return is not just monetary, it is becoming the type of person who finishes what they start. And let me tell you, there is no ROI greater than becoming the kind of person success cannot ignore. Habit 4. Practice thought, curation, not consumption. The modern mind is bloated with noise and starving for clarity. You scroll, you listen, you compare, you consume, but you do not think, and that is why your finances are stagnant. Because wealth is never found in information, it is found in interpretation. You must curate your thoughts like a librarian guards ancient scrolls. Not every idea deserves your attention. Not every piece of advice belongs in your mental bank. Not every emotion deserves rehearsal. Most people are not poor, they are distracted. Most are not lazy, they are overstimulated. Most are not incapable, they are buried beneath thoughts that do not belong to them. Let me give you a rule. Your financial future depends on the thoughts you are willing to ignore. Curate your inputs, choose your mentors wisely, filter your environment, and most importantly, write your own philosophy, every day, in your own hand, in your own words. Because when you can articulate your own beliefs about money, responsibility, and character, you stop drifting. You begin building. The master does not absorb hay, selects. He does not wreak, reflects. And it is this power to think, not just to know, that separates those who wish from those who create. Habit 5. Define a new internal identity. You will never rise above the identity you are loyal to. And if you identify as someone struggling, someone barely surviving, someone stuck in old stories, you will sabotage your way back to what is familiar. The key to financial transformation is not more information. It is a new identity. And identity is forged, not found. You must tell your nervous system, your subconscious mind, and your entire being a new story and then prove it daily with new habits, new posture, and new standards. If your inner world does not match the wealth you claim you want, the universe will not deliver it because it does not give you what you want. It gives you what you are. Do you believe you deserve abundance? Then act like it, stand like it, speak like it, think like it, create like it. You do not need to wait until the money shows up to become wealthy. You become wealthy now through clarity, through certainty, through execution, through emotional detachment, and the money simply follows. Because money is a magnet, and that magnet is your identity. You must understand this with finality. Nothing in your outer life will change until your inner self is changed. You do not make more money by hoping or by wishing or by chasing symptoms. You elevate your finances by reconstructing the foundation upon which your decisions rest. That foundation is identity. Not the identity you were born with, not the one inherited from culture, not the one carved out of childhood trauma or social labels, but the identity you construct by choice. Let me repeat this so your subconscious hears it clearly. You are not your emotions, you are not your environment, you are not your failures, you are not your income. You are the architect of every future result if and only if you decide to become that architect through new mental habits. Your results will always follow your repeated assumptions. So what do you assume when you wake up in the morning? Do you assume struggle is normal? Do you assume peace is for others? Do you assume wealth is distant? Then your results will obey those assumptions. But if you assume that you are powerful, that you are calm, decisive, intentional, wealthy in spirit, precise in thought, then every financial decision you make that day will carry the mark of sovereignty. Every decision you make financially is your identity in motion. If you spend out of insecurity, it is not a budget problem, it is a self-worth issue. If you procrastinate, it is not laziness, it is fear masked as logic. If you underprice your value, it is not humility, it is emotional bondage dressed up as virtue. You must go to war with the identity that keeps you broke and build, habit by habit, a version of you that finances cannot resist. Let us now deepen the 5 habits with even sharper force, not to flatter, but to form. On emotional detachment. If you allow your bank account to determine your worth, you will always stay beneath it. The emotionally entangled man waits to feel ready, waits to feel confident, waits to feel secure, but wealth does not arrive to those who feel. It arrives to those who act regardless of feeling. Let this truth become your compass. Your value is not defined by your emotions are defined by your standards. That means you do not allow a bad day to become a bad pattern. You do not let anxiety dictate decisions. You do not spend when afraid, hide when embarrassed, or quit when uncomfortable. Detach from the emotional noise. Stand on principle. Replace "how do I feel" with "what is the right action." Emotional detachment is not indifference, it is power. And until you master it, money will master you. On replacing reaction with command. There is no such thing as a financially free man who is emotionally reactive. None. Because the market will test him, his team will doubt him, his plans will fail, and if he responds with panic, he will destroy everything he builds. Understand this. The first thing you must budget is not your money, but your emotions. You must know exactly what thoughts deserve attention and what impulses deserve rejection. You must have policies in your mind just like a company has policies for conduct. For example, I do not respond to fear with retreat. I do not answer criticism with defense. I do not adjust my plans to comfort emotions. I do not make financial decisions when triggered. These are not suggestions, they are mandates for a mind that commands money. You must be the CEO of your nervous system. Otherwise, your nervous system will run your financial department and it will run it into the ground. So each morning, rehearse your response. Visualize chaos, then visualize calm. See the problem, then see yourself deciding. You must condition your body to obey thought, not to dictate it. That is what makes you different from animals. And that is what will make you different from 99% of people, most of whom are too addicted to adrenaline to ever become wealthy. On building daily mental discipline. Discipline is your compound interest in disguise. Most people look for leverage in others. But the greatest leverage is not who you know, it's what you do without needing applause. Do not confuse energy with direction. Do not confuse excitement with endurance. Do not confuse starting with finishing. You must learn the ancient law of kings. He who conquers himself can conquer all. Every day you train your mind, you are compounding trust in yourself. Every day you control your focus, you are compounding momentum. Every time you delay gratification, you are compounding financial power. Let me give you the truth most won't accept. Success is not about doing something big once, it is about doing something basic without fail. The world wants the extraordinary, but wealth is built in the ordinary, in the repetition, in the invisible, in the boring. If you are waiting to feel inspired, you will be broke forever. You must operate like a builder, not like a poet. Do you want to build wealth? Then build a pattern. Wake up early, no excuses. Speak your financial affirmations out loud. Make decisions that future you would applaud. Write down your lessons, not your losses. Practice gratitude like it's your only currency. And here's the secret. The man who masters discipline becomes magnetic, not because he is loud, but because he is inevitable. On thought curation. Your thoughts are sacred. Your inner world is your temple. Stop allowing thieves to live there. Stop scrolling through other people's lives and calling it research. Stop absorbing failure narratives from broke people and calling it humility. Stop letting the culture raise your mind. It was never designed to see you win. You must treat your mental environment like elite real estate. Not every voice deserves rent. Not every post deserves reaction. Not every piece of news is yours to carry. You must decide today whose voice matters to your wealth and who is just noise. Filter your mind like your future depends on it, because it does. Begin this ritual. Write down 5 thoughts a day that you reject. That's right, reject. Cancel. Renounce. Make a list of mental toxins and burn them. Every time you write these down and replace them with power statements, you are renovating the internal mansion where your future will live. Because here is what most people never realize. You don't get wealthy when you earn more. You get wealthy when your thoughts stop leaking power. on defining a new identity. Finally, the habit that holds the others in place, your decision to become someone new. If you do not change your internal blueprint, the external structures will collapse. You may reach success, but you won't sustain it. You may get paid, but you won't feel worthy of the reward. You may taste victory, but you'll self-sabotage before the second helping. Your income cannot outrun your self-concept. And every day you refuse to rewrite that concept, you are secretly loyal to the old you. So who are you now? You are not your past, you are not your debt, you are not your struggle, you are not your generational patterns. You are the man or woman who wakes up and says, "Today I am calm, I am calculated, I am creative, I am the cause of my results, I am the author of my story. I do not beg for wealth, I become it." And if you say that every day, live that every day, write that every day, you will become unrecognizable. Not to others, but to the version of you that was stuck. There comes a moment in the life of every man when he must either rise or rot. There is no middle ground. The illusion of neutrality is the breeding ground of decay. You are either ascending in power or decaying in excuses. You are either becoming the one who commands resources, relationships, and results, or you are dissolving into the great swarm of the forgotten. And I declare this without apology. Every hour you spend attached to emotional weakness, mental confusion, or the poverty of purpose, you delay your inheritance. You were not made for survival, you were made for strategy, for vision, for creation. And you will never build anything eternal until you stop clinging to what is temporary. Your moods, your insecurities, your desperate need to be understood by people who do not even understand themselves. This is not a motivational speech. It is a mental exorcism. It is the eviction of the old self, the burial of the identity that could not command a future, the identity that blamed the economy. That looked for shortcuts, that waited to feel ready, that counted failures instead of lessons, that coddled emotion instead of forging resilience. It is time to kill that version of you, not with violence, but with vision, not with guilt, but with grit, not with shame, but with structure. Let this be the final breath of the lesser self and the first breath of the version of you that money cannot ignore, the world cannot break, and the future cannot outgrow. Because the habits we have discussed are not optional if you desire sovereignty over your finances. They are the roots of every empire, the foundation of every free man, and the dividing line between those who inherit wealth and those who spend a lifetime begging for opportunity. Let me now tattoo this into the halls of your mind permanently. Wealth does not come to the most talented, it comes to the most disciplined. You must detach from emotional approval, because the world will not validate your greatness until long after it's been built. You must replace reaction with command, because chaos is the test, not the threat. You must build daily discipline through repetition, because excellence is not a performance, it is a pattern. You must practice thought curation over consumption, because your mental bandwidth is sacred, and no one is coming to protect it but you. And you must define a new identity, because you will never rise above the story you secretly tell yourself about who you are. Now listen as if your future depends on it, because it does. You have everything you need already, not in your bank account, not in your resume, but in your mind. You do not need to learn more until you learn to think. You do not need more time. You need more intentional hours. You do not need permission. You need to become undeniable. That begins the moment you make a covenant with yourself, a covenant you will not break. Not for boredom, not for fatigue, not for social approval, not for instant comfort, not for fear, not even for failure. The world does not respond to need, it responds to energy, it responds to structure. It responds to the man or woman who shows up every single day and says, "This mind is mine, these habits are sacred, my finances are a reflection of my character, and my character is non-negotiable." Now let me speak to the part of you that has been quiet for too long, the builder within you, the part that remembers you were made for more. You must decide now that your mornings are sacred, that your inputs are filtered, that your thoughts are your responsibility, that your emotions are your training ground, that your identity is no longer inherited, it is constructed. No more begging, no more bargaining, no more waiting for the economy, the partner, the coach, the timing. This is your economy. This is your timing. This is your throne. Let me give you one final law, the golden law of personal wealth. Money flows toward the man or woman who needs nothing emotionally but offers everything in clarity, service, and command. You do not chase wealth. You construct the mind that it will naturally obey. You do not pursue riches. You become so aligned in principle, so magnetic in thought, so intentional in action, that wealth must arrive because you have become its rightful steward. And when it does arrive, and it you will not lose it. You will not sabotage it. You will not shrink to the level of your old fears, because you will no longer be that person. You will have become the one who speaks like a king, works like a servant, thinks like a general, and feels like a monk still, powerful, untouchable. You will walk into rooms, and people will feel it. Not your clothes, not your speech, your energy, that rare force that only the emotionally detached and the mentally disciplined carry with them like a sword. You will make decisions others avoid. You will do the work others postpone. You will study the patterns others ignore. And you will live the life others dream of, not because of luck, not because of fate, but because of habit. 5 habits, 5 principles, 5 pillars of transformation. They are simple, but they are not easy, and that is what makes them sacred. Because you must die to the version of you that cannot carry them. You must grieve the identity that was addicted to comfort. You must release the person you became under pressure, under criticism, under fear. And you must now step into the only identity that can build a future without limits, the sovereign mind, the master of emotion, the guardian of thought, the executor of financial command, the architect of unstoppable momentum. If you can do that, and you can then, I will leave you with one final command. Begin today, not when you feel ready, not when it's perfect. Begin today. Begin with silence. Begin with one written thought. Begin with the refusal to react. Begin with the decision to show up. Begin with discipline. Begin with character. Because once you begin, truly begin, the universe begins with you. And wealth has no choice but to follow.